Donnie B. GotDaBeats.
What's good, everybody? I'm Donnie B. GotDaBeats. You know we live on the beat. Listen, this guest right here needs, you know, you and me. I got to do my stunning intros, right? So we take it back. You know, I moved out to California. The only way that it was possible for me to be out here in LA is due to my little brother and his wife Carmen. It's no other way. No matter what success I encounter out here, I gotta take it back to Jamar and Carmen. It would not be possible, period. And living with Jamar and Carmen was awesome because they're awesome souls in their own right. But I had the opportunity to meet this queen. Listen, when you think the word queen, you think that, you know, a lot of times people talk and it's like it's easily thrown out, right? But this queen right here, I immediately was drawn to her energy. Energy was crazy. Like just her presence of mind, just knew what she knew. And I come from that kind of like structure, that hierarchy, you know, being, you know, my mother is in the same vein, but this woman just from a business savvy had everything down. She's a Reiki Master. She's an intuitive coach. She's an author. She's done seminars. She's done webinars. This lady is doing her business, man. And I have nothing but respect for her. And I you know, like I said, if I have a platform, these are the type of people I search for immediately when I had that platform. So I reached out to her and she blessed me with this opportunity to talk about her and celebrate her. With all that being said, without further ado, Reiki Master, intuitive coach, author, entrepreneur, CEO, Francesca James.
Hey, Donnie.
Hey.
It's my honor, my pleasure to be here. I appreciate your asking me to be on your platform.
Thank you. Like I said, the pleasure is all mine. I'm not making this up. It's the beat's sole purpose is to spotlight the energies that the world need to see, and whether or not, you know, we just need to celebrate people in the moment, and that's just that. And you have been in all of my moments out here in LA, man. Like I said, if it wasn't for my family and then meeting you, none of this would be possible. So obviously, that's where we are.
Well, you were in my moment on Christmas Eve, and that's all I have to say.
You saw that.
I did. I was cheering you on. Absolutely, yes.
You made me hear the I voice on national TV and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Then I guess that the energy was well received because I tried to show out. I was like, I refuse to let my people down, yo.
Well, you did well. Yeah.
Thank you. So listen, you have all of these accolades and everything that I said I meant. Like I really look up to you as far as by you know the and hope I don't want to. When I say this, I mean it in a certain kind of way. So I don't want to. Hopefully, it doesn't rub you the wrong way. There's a charm that I learned, right? And it was a learn. I had to seek it. It's like a status, like a person that just I know, like James Earl Jones, you know, Eartha Kitt, maybe. Ruby D, you know, they walk to a room, they have a presence, it's a charm. Like you have to work to attain this level, and you just ever since I met you, it's like she has it. Like so awesome, so dope. And sorry, I'm just With that being said, on all of these things, is Francesca. Who is Francesca? How do we get here?
I think the major thing about me from childhood is I have known that there was an inner voice, an inner guidance. There was something that always spoke to me from within me that I relied on. I've told this story before that when I was a little girl, and I can't tell you the age because I don't remember.
We wouldn't do that anyway.
But my bedroom, no, I mean the age of this incident.
Okay.
My bedroom was upstairs in our house. And whenever there was something troubling me, whatever that would be for a child, I would, in the evening time, I would go upstairs into my bedroom. I'd turn the lights off. I would sit in the middle of my bed. I would put the covers over my head, and I would put my hands on my eyes to make it pitch black, and I would wait to see this light. I don't know where that came from. Never talked to anybody about it. But whenever I saw the light, I knew everything was okay. So there was always some connection for me with some kind of an inner world, inner guidance. And I think that really that's who I am. I can sometimes sound like a know-it-all to people. Like I think I know everything. But it's because I know what I hear. And when someone tells me something opposite of that, I'm trusting what I hear to be true for me. So sometimes I may sound dismissive, and I'm never meaning to be dismissive. And I do know that I can have a hit about something and someone can say something that sparks a different avenue for me. And so I do always listen to that. But I think basically that's who I am because that's what I take into everything that I do. I attempt to. I mean, I'm it's always a work in progress, but I attempt to do.
No, I understand that. Could you touch on that because that's actually an awesome point. The difference between being confident and overconfident is just the margin is seems to be very narrow. How do you feel? Like, what do you feel about that? And again, I've never took you as a person that was, pompous or arrogant. I was just like your confidence was amazing because I've always equated it to your works, and I say it all the time. Like, you don't like what I do, then you can Google me. Like you know what I mean, and let the work speak. It's not even about me trying to be, for the here and now. You know what I mean? And that's the energy I've always received from you. Is whereas, you've done a lot, and so when truth speaks, more people should listen, and that's just my thought process on it. So, how do you feel about me saying that, and do you feel that there's any truth there?
The difference in confidence and
overconfidence.
And overconfidence. Confidence is one thing. And I guess that can come from a knowing, but confidence can be linked to a lot of different things. So it's kind of a little bit different. I don't think of it as confidence. I just think of it as, well, I know. Well, that's what I heard. And that's what I do. I have a corporate background in television advertising, and my biggest success years were me just listening to my guidance, knowing what account to call because I've heard it. I got a hit about it. And I'm very much into my own spirituality and my alignment with something greater than myself. And so that biggest success time that I had, I would have clients where I would pray before I started a meeting. They may not know what I was doing, but that's what I was doing because I wanted to be aligned with that part of myself. So that gave me a sense of confidence. But confidence can come from a different place also. Confidence can come from an intellectual learning and knowing. It can come from logic. It can come from all kinds of places. But for me, if we use the word confidence, it's because I heard something. I felt something. I had a strong sense about something. And, I don't know that people would ever describe me as arrogant, but I do think sometimes, they don't say that to my face, but I do think sometimes people that I'm kind of like,
We went.
Am I okay?
We were talking a little bit, just a little bit.
I was teaching a class once, and I said to the class, I was like, I don't have your answers. And they were like, yes, you do. And I was like, but I don't. I try to, in my work as an intuitive coach, I try to guide people to their own answers. I throw things out. I ask a lot of questions. And, I have 2 daughters, and that part of me is maybe kind of annoying to them because I ask questions because that's just who I am. As a child, I did not ask questions. I was a very shy little girl. And I think maybe because I was a little different, and people used to say all the time, you're so weird. And I just go, I'm not weird. But then as I grew up and looked at, I'm a little different, so maybe that's weird and I'm okay with it. So there's that confidence, I guess, again.
Well, let me ask you this. What got you to that place where, like you said, finding the courage to do the weird, if that makes sense? Where did that come from?
When I really looked at it, a kid wants to be like everybody else. And so when somebody said that I was weird, I never really understood what that meant, even when they said it. And my thought was just like, I'm not weird. I felt like, well, I'm just like everybody else. But I never, as a child and as a young adult, I never looked at myself in comparison to other people. And I think that maybe that's the difference. Because a lot of times people look at themselves and compare themselves to be like this or to be like that or to dress that way or to whatever. And I just kind of was just me. And I never looked at myself in comparison to other people. So therefore, I didn't understand why they thought I was weird because I wasn't looking in that way. And at some point in my young adult life, I did take a peek and went, oh, I see why they think I'm weird. I'm different. And I'm like, I'm good with that. I don't want to be like them. I want to be like me, So I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it answered everything purposefully. Like, and it was eloquent, like the way you put it. It's interesting. I find a lot of similarity in that. Not that I'm surprised, because, like I told you, I draw a lot of inspiration from you anyway. I never even really probably even said it, but I do. The fact of the matter, like you said, of it being to me, it comes across as an awareness more so than anything else. It's like, I'm aware, I'm active. Yeah. I know I have a personality. I have my own fundamentals that I run with, that I move with. So I'm not relegated to whatever systemic type of thought process you guys are on. I'm just aware. I know why I exist, and that's it.
Yes, it's an awareness about yourself that's less concerned about an awareness about everybody else, and what they want, what they desire, how they think.
Yeah, and so that's, again, this is why I say, I drew a lot from you. You know what I mean? And it helped me in my transition to LA too, because it was like, well, I'm different. I'm already different. I moved to LA. Like our dress code is different. I thought process is from DC to LA. It's like, we don't even know what to do with that if we're not hip. Mm-hmm. And so, to be, listen, I kind of just want to be me, and having the like you said, the just knowing of being, this is what I want to do, and I used the word awareness, but it's funny because I'm hovering here because it's always kind of thrown at you. Oh, well, you're weird, or you're different, or you don't belong, or you're arrogant because you are aware.
Right. Well, you talked about how you moved. I think that is a level of confidence also, because I've moved a lot. I've lived in differently. I lived in New York. I grew up in Chicago suburbs, then lived in Chicago City. I lived in New York. I lived in Houston. This is my second time in Los Angeles. I lived in Denver. So I've moved without fear. I've moved because something called for me to move. And I was never in fear. And a lot of people have a fear about moving. So I think maybe that's a part of what helps to give you confidence, that, hey, I did this and started all over again, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah,
right?
You know all about that. Yeah. And survived and thrived. So.
me ask you this, switching gears, knowing where you're from,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what is it like to be in the pretty much the media capital of the United States, and being where you're from? What was it like growing up in Harvey, Illinois, to be and to see yourself transition? I know what my journey has been from DC to here, being in LA. But for you, what was it like growing up for you in Harvey?
Well, it was just life the way it was. I always say it's interesting. My parents are from Mobile, Alabama, and they found a place. Like Chicago is a very segregated city, but they found this little suburban area that was diverse. So I've always been in a diverse environment. And I went to a Catholic elementary school. Then I went to a public high school. And as shy as I was, I look back and I go, but you were involved in things. But I was very shy, but I was involved in things. And I don't even know how those two actually work together. But it's interesting. I went 8 years to a Catholic elementary school. And, we were just all friends together. But I realized as an adult that we were having different experiences because we had a 50-year reunion a few years back. And I went to that reunion and realized that most of those white kids that I went to school with came from very racist families. And I had no idea. We were friends. And yet I spoke with a woman who went to elementary school with me, in my class with me, took one of my classes recently. Her perspective is that the colored kids, the black kids, we weren't black then, Negroes, whatever we were at that point, we stuck together and she felt like they were separate worlds. I didn't see it that way because I was friends with everybody. I had a very close friend who I would visit her in her home. But as I think back as an adult, I don't know that she ever visited me in my home. Mm-hmm. And one friend that if you lived close to school, you could go home for lunch, and she used to say, "Hey, come home for lunch with me." And so I just lived in what for me was a very free flowing world, and yet I grew up during crazy civil rights times, and so I witnessed it, I understood it, but it never was my personal experience, because I felt very accepted in the world that I lived in. Even though really I wasn't being accepted because they came from racist families. And after, during this, the Republican National Convention this year is when I realized, oh my God, those people that I just saw a couple of years ago are Trump supporters, because I understood, okay, their families were racist, but they're Trump supporters. And how do they really feel about me? So, I guess I grew up clueless in Harvey, my own little happy world, And I think that's a lot of kind of what I do. I live in my space.
We'll pull back up on this conversation because this is a great topic starter for later in the conversation. I have a question that's geared up around that, and definitely want to compartmentalize and then kind of touch on it. But listen, where you are now, growing, like you said, growing up in just outside of Chicago, like the whole transition. You spent some time in Denver, if I'm not mistaken.
15 years in Denver.
See what I'm saying? I'm sorry, you were a little bit low. Say that one more time.
I said that's where I raised my kids, in Denver. It was a good, great, wonderful environment for raising kids. We were in Los Angeles at the time, and there were gang problems and all kinds of stuff happening. And again, an opportunity opened up for me to go to Denver. It wasn't something I thought, I think I need to move my kids away and move to Denver. Just something opened up and I followed it. And so we were there for 15 years.
See, this is kind of where I'm headed with it. Like, you have first of all, like I said, your work speaks for itself. Like as I said, if they Google you, they're gonna find that work, right? And I've always say that that's the difference between the tortoise and the hare. You know what I mean? And at least that's what I teach my kids. And it could be a parable that I'm lost on with them, but that's what I teach them. Is, you know, at the end of the day, you could Google the work. You find the work. You laid the track record. You did the blueprint. And so going through all of that, like asking, how did you get to this point? Seeing that you have been in multiple well-known locations, you know, Chicago, like I said, pretty much Chicago, Denver, you know what I mean, and now you're here in LA, and it's like you have to have a very large board that you're drawing up on. How did you get to this point to get from Harvey to the systemic media queen that you are right now?
Well, I went to school in Nashville, Tennessee, at the historically Black university. It's the only time I was ever in an all-Black environment, and I intentionally wanted to do that because I had grown up in such a diverse world, and it was my heartbeat. It was such a feeling of being home. I just absolutely loved it. And then, you know, graduated college, went back into white America because I went into corporate America. You know, worked for companies like a Gillette company, and I worked for IBM for a few years, and then got into television advertising. Came in and went out, was in for several years, came out, took a respite, started teaching yoga, meditation, and then went back into advertising when I lived in Denver. That was my step back into advertising. I trained in advertising in New York. And that, I think, that was a very significant time for me because although I had worked for IBM, I'd worked for the Gillette company, but when I went into advertising in New York specifically, and in my interview, a woman asked me, is there a place for anger in the workplace? And I'm this sweet little woman thing, you know, in corporate America, like real corporate America now. And I knew intuitively what her answer was that she wanted to hear from me. When in my mind, I said, why would you be angry in the workplace? In my mind.
Right.
But what I did is I leaned forward on the desk and I said, of course there is, because I knew that's what she wanted to hear. And something shifted in me. That was a shift point for me, where I feel like that little feminine thing that I was took on the masculine cloak. You know, I learned how to function in the world with the white boys. You know, I learned that there wasn't a place for my emotions except in the ladies' room. You know, women cry a lot in the ladies' room, in case y'all don't know. At least they did. I don't know what they do now. But I brought a whole different energy, and I learned a different way of being. And you know, there's a lot of money flowing in advertising. And so I wanted the toys that everybody else had. You know, I had so many toys in advertising, and I wanted that too. And so I started playing in that arena and making money and learning how to, you know, like watching, really, because nobody's teaching me. As a matter of fact, my very first job in advertising, I went through a training program. And there were supposed to be 4 people in that training program. They added me as a 5th because me. But I still remember her name. Kay Pete was our training person, and she pulled me aside and told me, "You are going to train harder than anyone else because we've only had one other Black. Well, we were Black by then. We've only had one other Black person in this training program, and he failed. So you're going to train harder than anyone else." Now, had we had recorders on our phone at that time, it would have been a different world, but we didn't. But what it said to me is like, oh, let me prove to them who I am. So it made me even more jump into their world and learn how to operate in their world. And it was extremely stressful for me. It was very stressful for me because I was like operating from these 2 different sides of myself and having to inch over into this place. And lived in it for so long that I got sick. You know, I lived in that world for many years which is why I think I broke away and taught yoga for a while. found peace and harmony with myself again, and then went back into advertising and became very ill because of it. And that's how I left that industry and went back into teaching yoga, meditation. Went actually into the world that I live in today.
That's it. No, that's that's interesting. It's all, but again, these are the things that need to come to light, right? Because when most people think of the dream, they don't think about as the journey to the destination. They just think about the destination, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to hear these nuggets, especially like I said, somebody that I know is accomplished as you, and that's what we're trying to draw out of here is just so people can kind of see how the Rubik's Cube kind of unfolds to show you who you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this:
what we think we are, because we do have history, you know. Mm-hmm.
No, and that's important, and that's the biggest thing. Like I said, this is your moment. The beat is not about me; it's about the energy, so people can get to understand the person. Because at the end of the day, when we judge celebrity, we don't judge the journey of the individual person that got to the name that you know. You know what I mean? So that's the deep part about it. So that's why this is formed. So this is all about you. I do want to ask though, because like I said, you're familiarized with a lot of different walks of life with regard to from marketing to life coach, business, just overall abundance of analysis to like I say that I'm a binary thinker, right? So I think about things as ones and zeros. I don't necessarily feel that I would say that about you, and it's awesome because it's like your pictures just become, it's like Apple. When you buy an Apple laptop or Apple computer, you see Apple marketing, and it's just like gorgeous to look at. It's just the marketing on it's crazy, and it's like it almost looks effortless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so and again, I'm sorry that I don't want to weird you out or anything like that, but it's just like that's how, again, me being a binary thinker, that's what I see. It either looks good or it doesn't. And everything that you've done has just looked and sounded good. Like it makes sense, and it's like why aren't more people on these types of things? So one of the things that you're on though is Reiki.
Yeah.
Now I moving to California. I had zero understanding. I was completely uneducated to energies, vibes. I guess DC, we just don't place a lot of value on those types of things because we're not exposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't understand Reiki, what it takes to have that understanding, the talent, the to be able to to hone and understand the channeling of Reiki. What is Reiki for those that don't, the uninitiated, the people that don't understand?
It's always hard to explain it because it's kind of so esoteric. It's a Japanese healing art, I guess is what you would call it. And when I use the term Reiki, but I've done a lot of other energy work studies, but Reiki is the major thing, and Reiki the name is well known. But when someone comes to me because their knee's bothering them, or because they're emotionally stressed, or something's happening with them on the physical realm, it is always tied to something emotional. And that emotion is always that whatever it's tied to emotionally causes your energy to function in a certain way that's not a flow. So, for instance, if someone has a knee injury, when I place my hands on their body, around their knee, or it could be above their body, and I'm tuning in to the way that what their energy is doing. And often when a person has an injury like that, the energy is locked up around it. It's just locked up. It's like not moving. It's just locked up because it's protecting. But what's happening is now the rest of that limb is not getting energy because it's all locked up around the knee. And so the best way I can term it is I am there representing energy flow. And it kind of makes, it's like me and the energy have a conversation. That's why I say it's so esoteric. Where it's almost going, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to flow. Okay, all right, let me open and move. And so you start to feel it moving and flowing. And then that person gets off the table and goes, oh my God, my knee feels better. And they may need to, it may be healed then, they may need to come back for another session, but they notice a change, a difference, because the energy is now moving through it. And when I say swear by her healing powers, I mean it because she's experienced it. It fascinates me still every single time. The other thing is when I'm doing Reiki, I'm hearing things because I say, I work through intuition, and intuition is threaded in everything that I do. And so sometimes people come to me, I'll go back for a knee issue. And then I work around, I don't just work on that area. It's a whole body. I go around the body, I sense, feel the way the energy is working and cause it to flow. And I may get to their shoulder and then my shoulder starts to hurt. And I ask myself, is this me or is this them? If it is me, it stays like, oh, I need to pay attention to something going on in my shoulder. If it's them, it goes away from me. And I realize it's an area that I need to concentrate on. And so after the session, I was like, have you been having a problem with your shoulder? Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that, or just different things will come to me. It's kind of weird. That's why people say I'm weird. I get it now. But different things come to me when I'm working on people energetically, because sometimes things are coming to me to remind them of, or to tell them about, or to tap them about. But anyway, I work around the whole body and cause the energy to flow. And it's interesting. Sometimes people's energy is, I didn't know, because I'm not musically inclined in that way, but I kept hearing staccato beat. And I didn't know what a staccato beat was. And so when I finished working on this person, and I asked them, do you know what a staccato beat? And she was telling me that it's like, I don't know how she described it, but that's what her energy was. It was just like not a flow at all. It was like, thing. People's energy, it just does different things. And when it can flow again, they feel a shift. They feel less stress. They feel more aligned. They feel pain go away. They feel healthier, Does that make sense?
No, hey, listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. Comments, the comment section erupted. First of all, I just wanted to say that, but I'm gonna tell you right now. I too have you. Like I came and sat on your table, and I'm telling you right now. I'm not even using this as an the platform. I work. I was sleep, and I don't go to sleep during the day.
Right.
I was sleep. I was just like, yo, she like. Everything that you worked out was like, if it worked out, I don't need it.
That's another thing, is that people go into a state where they say I was asleep. It's really, they're like in some kind of an altered state. They're not really asleep. Well, sometimes people do sleep. But they're like in another, they're gone. They're gone. Yeah. And I think it happens that way because then I can really, they're not involved in what's happening with the energy flow. They don't get to be afraid or be concerned or whatever. They get, it just gets to flow. And a story about my children when they were in college. Sometimes, I would talk to one of them and they would say, my finger's been bothering me. My finger's been hurting. And without them knowing, that night, because you can do Reiki long distance also, I would work on that finger. And then I would talk to them the next day. And we would just be having a conversation. I go, how's your finger doing? They're like, oh my God, it hasn't hurt all day. I hadn't even thought about it. And I was like, that's because I worked on you last night, So the person does not have to be there with you, which is a good thing about this quarantine situation that we're in now, that people can get Reiki long distance also and feel the effects of it. And when I do it long distance, I like to do it while they're sleeping, when I know that they've gone to bed so that they're receptive.
Listen, I just got to add to this because I'm gonna tell you I'm a conspiracy theorist. I am a I got to chat. My mom. If I pull my mom on the beat and did an interview with her, she'll tell you the number one thing I used to ask as a child was why. I got to know why. I'm a why kid. I've always been a why kid. I'm still a why person. Why full grown man. So things have to make sense, right? Until they don't, and when they don't, I respect it because I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. But it did what it needed to do. Y'all know, and like I said, going to see you, and I didn't. Listen, it worked out stuff I didn't even know I had, and then when I started feeling the pressures and stuff again, it was just like, well, wait a minute, where did that come from? I didn't know, and then it was like, hold up, okay, you know what I mean? And like, man, listen, you worked out some stuff, man. Like you're really good. That's all I can say about
that Reiki taught me, because I'm really, the whole spirituality is really important to me. And you've heard the saying that there's only one life. Say there's only one life that's living. And I could never make sense of that. How could there be only one life? I'm seeing this person, that person. And I was always trying to make sense of it. And Reiki helped that make sense to me, because I can hold my hand over a person and I feel their energy. I can hold my hands over a plant and I feel its energy. I can hold my hand over a crystal and I feel its energy. I can hold it over my food and I feel its energy. And so I realized that's the life that's living. That energetic thing that I feel, that's the life that's living. And so that helped me to understand one life, that I'll pictures differently, because a dog and a cat are not the same thing, but they're all expressions of one thing. That makes sense?
No, it makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton. Totally get it. I like I said, and I'm speaking from a space as to where I've experienced it. So, like I said, if I didn't experience it, then maybe could be. I might be like, well, it could be. No,
yeah, right.
Yeah. The feeling of understanding that things exist, an awareness is everything. That's why I said the word awareness. It's funny. I actually saw a movie that kind of made me aware recently, and it was just like, so that's what that is. That's the perfect word for it. It's an awareness to understand when people talk about third eye and chakra and all this extra stuff. It's like it's being boop, that it opens up. Now I see, and it's like, wow, So I absolutely believe with it. I believe in it. I absolutely believe that you have that gift, and like I said, it shows by the foundation that you've laid. Because you wouldn't be able to lay the foundation if you weren't achieving those accolades, if that makes sense. So, again, there's all that to say. So, but with regard to the Reiki and the energy and the talent and the ability that it takes, because not everybody can do it, not everybody subscribes to it, not everybody believes it.
Yeah.
What would you say in your many years of experience are the common misconceptions? There are a lot of misconceptions, I'm sure, out there with regard to people being intuitive, and intuitive is the appropriate word to use in this scenario. But what are the common misconceptions about people being having that intuitiveness?
About them having intuitiveness?
Yeah, or the common misconceptions of Reiki and people being enlightened to be able to have the talent to feel the energy as you do, and so forth and so on, because not everybody can do it, obviously.
Well, and they can't. That is the truth. There are trainings that are learning, because there are 3 levels of Reiki training, and the training that I took, there's months of Reiki 1, then there's months of Reiki 2, and then there's months of Reiki 3 before you've completed your training. Well, there are like 1, 2, 3 in a weekend. That's a misconception. I'm sorry. I just do not buy that you really are learning Reiki in a weekend.
Right.
My teacher would not accept anybody. He would feel their energy to know whether or not he felt like they were ready for this and he wanted to work with them. And, you know, I've been to people to have Reiki done, and I don't feel any change from it. So I'm very careful about who I allow to work because you're in my energy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really careful about what that person's energy is that's working on my energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, everybody that says that they are a Reiki teacher or a facilitator or therapist or healer is not necessarily the person for you. An example, years ago, not long after I started practicing Reiki, I went to Cuba. And when I was there, I went under a license because you had to go under a license very specifically then. But I kept saying, I want to meet healers because I know how Cuba, they're the healers of the world, man, you know, because they have nothing to work with except what they got, you know. And so I met this man who was so powerful. You could just feel his energy. And there was another woman with me who had done Reiki training also. And he had each of us individually stand across from him. And he had her stand across from him first. And he said, you are giving up your energy. That is not what it's about. You're using your energy. It's about channeling energy. And when he felt me, he could feel that that's what I was doing. We could feel each other's energy and the power that was there. So a misconception is that I'm healing you. That's why I call myself an energy therapist, not an energy healer, because I'm not healing you. I am channeling energy I call it through hollow bones that helps you to heal your own body.
And you damn good at it.
I love it. I'm fascinated by it all the time still. And it's been 20 years probably. Something like that. I don't even remember.
Wow.
I've been doing Reiki.
Wow. Like I said, everything that you've done, it's been laid before. Like I said, I'm very picky about who I have on the beat. It may not appear to external viewers, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm very picky about them. And at the end of the day, like I said, I mean, your work precedes you, and people can go back and look. Thank you for the misconceptions.
Yeah.
Reiki is something that's very interesting. I actually believe in spiritual energy. Even my grandmother was Native American, and she was heavy into that. And you know, it's there was a lot of different perspectives to the same instance, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of different lenses look at the same thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So I respect all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're everybody else's opinion. They're so forth and so on. I'm not saying it the same way you see it. I'm just saying that the respect is there. And I understand where it comes from. I understand what it's made of, and so forth and so on. And the fact that you're able to, how can I put it, instruct other people to understand what it is that they're seeing. You're able to interpret it is the thing that I hold the most paramount, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's cool. There are a lot of things in front of a lot of people, but if there's no one to help them see exactly what they're seeing, they just see it as, oh, that's a dog.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I'm saying yes. Right.
There's people to be like, oh, that's a dog. No, that technically is a Cocker Spaniel. Like, you need to understand the heritage behind what the Cocker Spaniel is and why that's so awesome what you're looking at, so forth and so on. And with Reiki being in intuitiveness and all of the above, you have to have to me, you have to have a precedence to understand exactly what it is that you're experiencing. And I've been hip. I've been watching and understanding. And like I said, going on the table, Francesca James does the table.
I'm to my table.
I'm trying to tell you, man. Listen, I probably had to book some time because we got to work some issues out in 2020 because it was unprecedented of a year.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about current projects. What are you currently working on?
Oh, my heart right now. Everything that I do, everything I've done has led me to this moment. There are 2 classes that I'm teaching right now that are, one of them I've been teaching for a very short period of time, and the other one is brand new, launching this week.
Okay.
The first class, one class is for white people and one class is for Black people specifically.
Okay.
I've never done that before.
It's necessary.
The white people class came about because after George Floyd, when we began our exhaustion, because we're still exhausted. I don't think white people understand. We're still exhausted. But when that real exhaustion began, Black people were simply saying, because white people's eyes were opened and Black people were saying, they got to figure it out themselves. I can't do it for them. Go do some research. We've been researching you all of our lives. Go do some research. Go figure it out yourself. And I was thinking, if they could figure it out themselves, they would have done that a long time ago. They can't figure it out themselves. And so I decided that I was going to teach a class. It's called Deconstructing Racism, Moving Through Discomfort to Action. And that languaging, because I do think if white people could heal the bias and the racism inside of them, and they all have it because they've lived in a world of privilege, whether they want to recognize it or not, white skin gives you privilege. And so there is bias and there is racism that lives inside of them. If they could recognize that, heal it, which means they've got to move through some place of discomfort in order to do that, then they can take that privilege and create action that's beneficial for the whole, and specifically beneficial for Black people, because we are the most hated people in this country. More than anybody, Black people have been hated in this country. And so the class commits them to doing some kind of action that's beneficial for Black people, that's not just being a performative ally, as it's called, than just talking the talk. But what I discovered is it's very difficult. People have taken that class and they are in my heart because they've really taken it seriously and are committed. But most people come up with excuse after excuse after excuse because they don't want to be uncomfortable.
Of course.
They don't want to lose their position in society. They believe that they're going to be made to feel guilty, but the guilt is on them. Black people are not trying to make white people feel guilty. Their guilt comes from our history. And so there's all of these things that they don't talk about, but they come up with excuses as to why they can't take the class, even though there are still people taking the class. But the majority, I thought because there were so many people who were wanting to be allies and wanting to be anti-racist that they would want to understand, but they don't. They're afraid. And so then it took me to, they don't have to stop being racist. We have to stop being attached to their racism. And so and again, when I'm going to teach a class, it's because intuitively I'm told to do this. And so I got a hit to teach a class specifically for Black people to decolonize our minds, to unhook ourselves from the racist world that we live in, to be less concerned and to be more aware of who we really are. Because we bought into the lie, because we were beaten into it, and because there was a system that we wanted to be a part of. And so we learned to play this role, and we learned to be quiet, and we learned to step back. But George Floyd was a demarcation line. I say all the time, we're unapologetically Black. I'm not stepping back anymore. I'm not speaking the truth of who I am. And you know what? I know who I am. I know what my people come from. I know what we represent. And so this class is called Crowned because we already are crowned. It's not something that we have to go to You know, there's a show called Lovecraft
Country.
Country, yes. And yeah, I think it was at the final episode, she said, we're taking our magic back. And that's where we're taking our magic back. It's our magic. It's ours. And we're taking it back. And we're owning it. Not to not share it, but to remember that it's who we are. And there's something very special about the fact that we commune with nature and that we are social beings and that we are passionate and compassionate, and that though our passion may look like anger to you, we know it's not anger. So you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's who we are. And I've never been more excited about a class as I am this class because of the things I've learned as I'm preparing to teach the class. And it starts on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, I think that date is the 19th. It's 5 weeks, an hour and a half per week. And I tell people it's a money back guarantee, because if you don't leave this class with your head held higher and your chest a little more puffed out and really understanding the role that you are here to play at this point in our history, because we are in a newness like we've never seen before. We are in a place where white people's eyes are open, where people are fighting to, like, I have an ad on Facebook for the class Crowned, and all of these white people are saying they're laughing at the idea of this class, saying that, well, black people need to be more intelligent, and then we wouldn't have, and they're like fighting. And so I'm so unaffected by what they're saying. And I said, you can have your own opinion. It's fine. I'm out of it. I don't have anything to say in this conversation, because they're fighting to hold on to something that's dying.
Right.
In a shift. And everybody doesn't see that. And that's okay. It only takes the ones who see it to create this shift that we're in. And so that is the most important project that I'm in right now, is to help Black people unhook themselves from caring about what white people think and what they say. Be aware, absolutely, but to be less caught into it, because we know who we are and we're stepping forward differently. And there you have
it. No, nuggets, right? Like everything that you said is spot on, and consistent to what I believe. It's crazy because I never would have, 5 years ago, I never would have imagined myself to be the thinker that I'm thinking that I am now. Right. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here in LA. It molded me into the man that I am now. I really sit back and admire all of the good works and things that are out there, and it's just my appreciation for things is so much greater. So to see the negativity, to see the issues that we're encountering now, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And I don't even feel no kind of way about it, because at the end of the day, I think nothing less, because I'm like you said, I don't expect anything less from other people. At the end of the day, I expect humans to be themselves.
Yeah.
So if I look at it from that perspective, then in the grand scheme of things, then I'm not surprised, because this is what humanity has to offer. Mm-hmm. Now within regard to the systemic divide that was created. I've long since believed that. And I've been a conspiracy theorist since I was 12 years old, which is crazy, but I don't know. That was just always something that I always thought was interesting, and it created a conspiracy theorist out of it. But to be able to see these moments and these eras, this time that we're in right now, and to see the free thinkers, people that really see, have the open mind to be able to see the bigger picture, whereas that has been lacking. I think if nothing else, that has been the part that has been lacking, is is why we can progress, because most people couldn't see above the status quo. They were. Mm-hmm. So, you get what I'm saying. It's like, well, to be able to see it, and to me, that's the American dream that Dr. King was talking about. He had a dream about, was for us to be able to actually see the playing field as is, just like our counterparts, to be able to make the decisions that we need to make. on the fly, and not just be thinking of, oh, we're the last person to find out. Then we have to navigate from there. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So these times are definitely very unprecedented. These times are definitely very much aware, and people need to wake up and see it for what it is, because it doesn't get it. To me, it doesn't get any more clear.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. We've never been here before. We've not been here before. This is a new something. We've never been here before.
And you know, and again, I'm saying that from, and not from a, again, hopefully this not going to cross wrong. You've seen a lot of different regimes, right? And so to be able to say that, hear from somebody who has actually in actuality been in these different regimes, to be able to say that's what I'm basing this off of.
You know, during election time, you know, there's the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's like, you know, and I'm like, I've lived to see a lot of Democratic presidents, and I've lived to see a lot of Republican presidents. And do you see how grounded systemic racism is? Like, so it's really not about their party. It's really not about the party. It's about our consciousness. It's about, particularly right now, it's about our consciousness and how are we holding whoever's there accountable. We haven't really held them accountable. But I think we're in a period now where that's going to absolutely be happening. We must hold our politicians locally, particularly. Our local politicians are important. But we have to hold our politicians accountable to what our needs are, because nobody's ever really, really cared about our needs. Only on the surface. You know, they care about us to get us to vote for them. And then they drop the ball. But we have to hold them accountable now.
Speaking of accountability, now that I have you, you know, we got to speak on this because it is a hot topic. It's simmering right now in our society. And I'm gonna say this loosely. My frame might go out. I want you to continue to keep saying your conversation, you know. But what are your thoughts on the Capitol attack? And in the instance of, also we have the inauguration coming Wednesday. In light of everything that you have just said, what is your thought process as far as, by way of being a woman who has experienced a lot of different regime changes and different thoughts and processes, and seeing our democracy in such fragile states even previously? What are your thoughts on the Capitol attack? What are your thoughts on where we stand with the Biden campaign coming in the inauguration on Wednesday? What are your thoughts?
On the Capitol attack, I really see that they are so afraid. They're so afraid of what is happening, because there is a shift that we're in right now. There's a shift. You can feel it. There's a shift in energy, and Black people are stepping up, and we are speaking our voices, and we have a presence in a way that we haven't had before, and it scares them to death. Partially because, you know, sometimes they think we're going to treat them the way that they treated us, but that's not who we are, and that's not what we're about, and that's not what this time period is about. That they believe that they don't know what a world is like where they're not at the head of everything, where there's not someone who's below them, but we're looking at a world where things are more equitable. And I just think everything about what is happening is scaring them to death. And so they are acting out in crazy, crazy ways. I think, you know, Black people are going, man, white people are crazy. You know, you hear that a lot. We hear that and say that a lot because we're seeing so much crazy that's coming forward out of them. But it's fear. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. And as far as the whole Biden and Harris ticket, our new president and vice president, I think the biggest thing there is what I said earlier. They must be held accountable. They're still politicians. You know, they're politicians. And they're politicians. I mean, that's the bottom line for me. You know, and I believe that they will be able to be held accountable in a way that maybe hasn't happened before, but they must be held accountable. Absolutely.
Now I gotta ask this question.
Go right ahead.
I have this queen here on my line, and I gotta ask it. And it's not necessarily that I don't want to ask it. It's not necessary because it's not really a topic. It's kind of a anyway. Let me get to it. Kamala Harris, though.
What about her?
Do you feel she's going to be able to help deliver us to a better promises than we were promised before?
Like I said, if she's held accountable, yes. I think we have to press, and that, you know, I'm not that person. Like, we all have different roles to play, and there are people who are ready to play that role. And I think that we have to press and press and press and press her. And I think there's an openness in both of them. I do. I think there's an openness in both of them that is a possibility, because honestly, Donnie, I think that's just where we are. You know, I just think that's where we are. If we're in a place where an old system is dying, and an old system is dying, which is why they're so afraid, and a new system is being birthed, then they're the two people to represent what that looks like. But they must be held accountable. If they're not held accountable, it's like business as usual. You know, I don't just simply think that because Biden and Harris are our president and vice president, that life is going to change. Oh, so easily. But I think we're going to see some interesting times over these next 4 years. I think we're going to see an interesting time this year. But I think good things are afoot. That's my intuitiveness. That's my belief. That's my feeling about it. But can I just say a little issue that I have personally?
Please. This
has really not much to do with anything, but here's something that I don't like. I am from a historically Black university myself.
Me too.
I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority.
Okay.
I don't like that they play that up about her. I don't personally, because it's, again, when have we talked about what sorority any president or vice president belonged to? So now what? AKAs are now better than deltas because the vice president. You know, it's almost like it's putting us in some kind of a competition has nothing to do with her as a vice president. And I don't like that. I mean, I understand the pride of AKA going, hey, she's an AKA, or I understand the pride of individuals going, oh, she's from an historically Black university. I get that, me as a person, but that they play that up, I don't like it. And I don't really understand what that's about. So I've had my say.
And that's a totally understandable perspective. I mean, and I think a lot of propaganda is thrown, especially when you're talking about selecting seats. Too much propaganda, if you ask me. When it comes down, we're talking about people's lives at stake. It don't matter what organization they're a part of. At the end of the day, if they're getting a job done,
right, exactly.
Are you the best?
I'll be running out in your faces after a while. Who knows? You know.
Hey, so I understand exactly why you feel the need to say that. I totally do. You know, but you know, I had to ask. You know, from one sister talk about another sister. You know, I understand, and like I was raised by a sister, so I understand. You know, with the sorority, you know, the sorority of women, 5 Women Incorporated or something, whatever. You know, I just had to ask that question to see what your thoughts was. I hope that she's met with the same grace and allowance that Barack was. Because and that's saying a lot. Well, no, I would hope for better too. But again, this is the world, and this is reality. You know, and no, I felt Barack was the best qualified for the job. They gave him what they gave him, but he made the most of it, and that's why I say with Kamala, you got to meet it with the same grace that Barack did, because it's almost the same equal kind of penance that he had to pay to be on top. So that's what I mean. I don't mean no disrespect by that. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Babs of Love says Black people need to know we're our own saviors.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what Crowned is about. That's what this class is about. It's not about anybody else. It's about us. And we have never had more of an open door for that to be possible than right now.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I have one last question, one last strong question, and then we can have two outro questions and we out because I know your time is precious. Mental health effects of COVID in LA, and I speak with that specifically because COVID. Most people talk about COVID, the pandemic, and all of the things that's involved with it, being shut in and locked away, and so forth and so on. You as a person who experiences higher energies from people who that the reading the energy and putting your hands on people and understanding where their tight spots are and so forth and so on. Could you explain either what you think or what you've experienced even would be more pertinent to the question, the mental health effects that you've experienced of COVID in Los Angeles?
Well, I see two sides to it because we are social beings and we're being asked for some reason not to be. I do believe that COVID is the coronavirus. And put it that way. I believe that the coronavirus is absolutely not given all of the accurate, and that in itself affects our mental health. Particularly because you're saying in LA, particularly in LA, because we can do this, but we can't do that. Oh, we can't do that anymore, but we can do this. And and it's like this. We've had such a back and forth, that how could it not affect your psyche and your mental health? Even the strongest of us, how can you not be affected by it? Opportunity like you have done doing here, that have taken the opportunity to be creative and to grow and to do other things that are expansive, that gives them an outlet, and an outlet that they will carry on even whenever that day comes, that we're all back out in the world again. Right. But it is such an opportunity. Let me tell you, it's depressing to me because it's an indication that they don't care about us. Because if there's a virus that is deadly, show us how to heal from it. Tell us the things to do. But instead, you got playgrounds open with little snotty kids, passing germs. You got liquor stores open. You opened up patios and then you closed them back up. You're affecting people's businesses. How could it not affect, if things there's a ripple effect. So even if I'm doing well in this and I'm a caring person, how can I not be affected by the fact of what's happening to other people, particularly to my people? One of the things that we're going to talk about in class is the importance of vitamin D to Black people. And you're telling us to stay inside. You're telling us to stay inside. We make it a little sun because we come out for a little while. We need more sun than anybody because we have so much melanin. And melanin is very protective for us in many ways, but it also keeps the vitamin D from coming in to our body. So they told us 80 to 90% of the coronavirus cases are vitamin D deficient. Well, we're vitamin D deficient, but nobody says, Black people, take your vitamin D. So I'm saying, Black people, take your vitamin D because we need it more than anybody does. To be shut away from people, to be asked not to be around your family, to wear a mask all the time. How could it not affect your mental health? And it's hard to say what people must do inside of that. But there are tools. But it's like, there are tools that we should be using anyway. And as soon as I heard about the virus and the pandemic and the quarantine, I went, oh my God, God is asking us to focus on our health. But we're being drawn to the outside, which is not teaching us to focus on our health. It's teaching us to take a vaccine that's been created, but they're still testing out, and they want to test it out on black people. So, on the mental health thing, it is huge, and it's understandably huge because they're taking away our humanity. They're taking away who we are, particularly people with melanin. We are. Melanin has a lot to do with our intuitive nature, our compassion, our humanity. And you're asking us to step aside from that. And my question is why? And I have answers for myself. But I don't know if I answered the question in the way that you were looking for an answer, but it's huge.
No.
It's a huge effect on our mental health, particularly in a place like here in Los Angeles, where they keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And restaurants are shutting down, and then restaurants are opening up. Well, how are these restaurants opening up when my little place over here that I love is now gone? It's just, there's these two sides to a coin, and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So how could it not affect our mental health? Because we know even when we don't know.
Well, let me ask you this to piggyback on top of that. And everything that you said was eloquent and to the point. You answered all of the questions. Vaccine, though. Do you agree with the mandatory vaccine? Do you feel that that is something that they need to pursue? Or do you feel that people should just get back down to business to understand exactly what it is that they take, what they need to do to govern their body and their house and when they're dealing with people?
That's going to be a hard one. And it was not hard for me, but it's going to be a hard one for some people maybe to hear, because some people are like, oh my God, I can't wait to go get the vaccine. And I'm like, I start praying for them. Because I had someone send a video to me of someone that they know who's a nurse, Black woman, who has Bell's palsy because she took the vaccine. I just saw someone else in a thing from a nurse the other day who was saying, please don't take this vaccine. They are testing it out. They don't know, and then there's this, I can't remember his name, but he's Zach something. He's a huge person who's aware of viruses and bacteria and the whole medical world. And he's saying, so they're giving you a vaccine for one virus? You know how many viruses there are out there? So they're giving you a vaccine really for one virus? And again, the majority of people who contract the coronavirus heal from it. The vast majority of people, but they don't talk about that. I believe, honestly, I said this to someone the other day, I think I had the coronavirus like a few years back, because all the things that they described, I was that sick. I felt all of those things, but I knew what supplements to take. I knew what to put in my body. I knew what to do to bring me back to health. And if they cared, that's what they would be telling us. But they're not telling us that. They're telling us to take a vaccine. So, it's not a decision I can make for anyone. I don't intend to take a vaccine. My family has no desire to take a vaccine. My clients typically don't have a desire to take a vaccine because they're listening to something else and not necessarily tied in to what's being told to us. Because one of the questions, like I talked about the Republicans and the Democrats, we still are in systemic racism. The question I ask is, when did we have a medical world and a set of politicians that cared about us? When did that exist? So why am I putting my trust in them now? That's the bottom line of how I feel. They don't care about us. So why am I going to think that they're creating a vaccine to help me? I don't trust them. And I know how to help myself. I know how to keep my immune system boosted. I know how to supplement. And We Black folks, we always did wash our hands. So this is not news to us, that these are the things that we have to do. But what we need to know more about is how to nourish our bodies, because that's what keeps us healthy.
Love the answers. Love every single one of the answers. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. What's your advice for aspiring talent? People that are aspiring to either understand and take on the practitionering of Reiki. Somebody that's aspiring to want to be intuitive or be an intuitive coach such as yourself. Or even somebody that's just aspiring and like if nothing else, it's like, look, you're an author, you're a published author. Like I want to know what that's like. What is your advice for aspiring talent? People that are aspiring to be something greater and see you as the example. What would be your lasting advice?
Well, anybody who knows me knows that I say all the time, we have not one thing that's more important than our intuitive guidance, that we all have it. And so anybody that's aspiring to do anything, whatever it is, I would say learn to listen to your guidance, because you could be aspiring to do something because of some reason that has nothing really to do with you. It's not even what you're being called to do. It's because you think, well, if I do that, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. But is that coming from your guidance, or is that coming from what happened with that person over there, or from your intellect or your logic? For anybody that's aspiring to anything, if they're talking to me, I'm going to say, what is your guidance saying? What's your gut say? Why do you feel that way? Where did that come from? And to teach them how to hear that inner guidance, because it's not something that we're taught. Like, who teaches that in general society? Bottom line for me is listen to your guidance and do. And guidance will give you big pictures. Like when I was writing a book, and I would be in my bed at night, I had a tall, high bed, and I pull my laptop onto my bed, and my fingers are flying, and my mind's going, I don't know how to write a book. That's what my head's saying, but my fingers are flying because there's something that wanted to come through me. It wasn't because I decided I wanted to write a book, because there was a book that wanted to come through me. And that's just the bottom line for me. Listen to your guidance, and if you don't know how to listen to your guidance, find someone that can help you to learn to do that.
Okay,
that's what I got.
Nah, I expect nothing less. It's what it is. You know what I mean? So I totally understand it.
Yeah.
The last question I have for the evening, unless you get back to it, because I know you're extremely busy. How can people learn more about you? Do you have any shout outs? Anybody that you want to, to give thanks for where you are now to this point? How can, what links do you have in order for people, if they have questions for you, more questions, and they want to patronize you? How can people learn more about you?
Well, I have two websites. One is my personal website where I talk about Reiki and the classes that I teach. And that's Francesca-James.com. I have a nonprofit that's called We Need Each Other, and the website for that is weneedeachothernow.org. And you can contact me through either of those and find out all the things that I'm doing, the classes that I'm teaching, the events that I'm doing. I have a webinar that happens once a month. It's called A Seat at the Table. You can find out through weneedeachothernow.org more about that. The classes are on both websites. And so it's Francesca at Francesca-James.com. I have a podcast that there's a new episode that comes out every Monday. And that is also called We Need Each Other. And you can find that on my website, weneedeachothernow.org. And I don't know how you worded it, but my support system is my family, my daughters, their spouses, and my daughter that I've adopted, Barbara. They're my champions. They are there to help me understand things, because that whole world of social media it's foreign to me. I think I do really well, but it's not, I remember telling my daughter, I learned to type on a typewriter, slow down, it's a world that just is always changing and evolving, and it's hard for me to keep up with it. And they keep me tied in, they keep me clued in, and they support me, and I lean into them very much. Do need an assistant, so I'm asking God, I need an assistant. I need an assistant to help me to do things that I get bogged down in doing, when I could be spending my time listening and creating more, because that's my love. That's what I love to do. Yes, the podcast is on Apple and Spotify and all podcast platforms, and you can also find episodes of it. Every episode is launched on my website, weneedechathernow.org also. Anything else? Did I answer everything that you asked?
No, you absolutely did. You absolutely did. This was a great interview. I think, if not nothing else with this interview, just to start, you should be able to learn a lot about yourself through what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order for you to gravitate to what a person's saying, you got to understand exactly where you are to know how to travel a distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the key, and that was why I asked you to be on the show. I know you have a great. No problem. You have a great wealth of experience, and I listen. I'm never that guy, no matter how large or how small, or whatever. If I come across great people, they're great people, and it's my job to try to help get people to those great people. And you're definitely one of the great people that I've met. Like, your works are okay. The works are unprecedented. You know what I mean? And these types of things happen. And as Mortgage Lab says, yes, she does need an assistant, definitely. But with all that being said, thank you. Oh, we're gonna bring her back. Thank you, Babs. I appreciate it. We were just going back to the chat room. Sorry to have lost you. Technical difficulties exist in the technical world, so it is what it is. But in the grand scheme of things, all I was saying was, I have paid attention to the teachings that I've heard you convey to the world. I've watched your movements. I'm in awe of who you are as a person and what you bring to the table. I'm saying that as from a grown man to a beautiful Black queen. Like, I gotta say those things to you, so that way I made the adjustment in 2020 to say, we lost a lot of great people in 2020 to not experience them in the now.
Yeah.
So with me being able to say that, I would definitely take the opportunity to say that to you here and now, that you are a Black queen. You are who people should aspire to be. I appreciate that. It got me tearing up and everything. But you know what I'm saying? Like, in the grand scheme of things, that is what it is. It's all 100% and 100% honest. So this is exactly what the type of stuff that I want on my programming, for people to understand what it's like, so you don't subscribe to the propaganda. You don't subscribe to the stuff that, they see us to be, whereas what we are. You know what I mean? And so when I pull people on this podcast, I pull the people on this podcast to say, hey, these are people that the world need to pay attention to, because at the end of the day, they're doing what you were doing. You know what I mean? And if not nothing else, to definitely perpetuate and further your teachings, because everything that you've been doing is awesome. So, like I said, we are at the end of time. I definitely wanted to take the opportunity to say that, all of the things that I've said, and it goes without saying. Hopefully you understand that. And as with else, and you know how to reach me. But the world definitely needs to understand who you are. So at the end of the day, if I can help, that's the extreme least I can do.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. Your links are associated with the details on the page. I will direct people in to your direction. I think the world needs to hear Francesca James. I think she has a great wealth of understanding and knowledge that everybody would be lucky to have. And we should really think about her thoughts and her perspectives. And if not nothing else, that Reiki though, that needs to be like a hashtag. That Reiki though, you know what I mean? Because you know what I mean, like yeah, like that Reiki though. Like I need to schedule you in 2021 a couple times though. I need to work that out my schedule. But
here.
So, do you have anything, any words of encouragement, any outro, anything that you want to say, leaving us?
You know, any Black person out there listening, take the class Crowned. It starts Tuesday, the 19th. It's 5 weeks from 6 to 7:30 p.m. for 5 weeks. That's Pacific time. That's Los Angeles time. Take the class. I've said it's a money back guarantee. You will not regret it. Contact me, ask me questions. Go to my website. It'll give you information. That's the most important thing to me right now, because that's where we are, and that's what's going to shift the trajectory of our world right now. It's in our hands.
Facts. And due to the inauguration happening on Wednesday, do you have any thoughts or final thoughts or words on that?
As far as the inauguration is concerned, because of who I am and what I do, I'm in prayer. I just am in prayer, and I'm in prayer. I just am. Whenever I think about it, I send a prayer of safety and security out there, because people are crazy and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, but I'm just seeing it peaceful and harmonious and whole, and a triumphant moment. That's how I'm looking at it, and that's what I'm calling forth to be true.
I ain't got no other words. This is Donnie B got the beats. You know we live on the beat. Thank you, Francesca James.
Thank you so much.
You're so awesome, and I'm saying that because I love it, and you're so awesome.
I so appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank
you.
You.
I wish you the best.
Thank you. Likewise. You already know.
Okay.
All right, here we go. And we out. And everybody, listen, stay in love, stay blessed, stay masked up. It's necessary. This is where we are. And love each other in the moment. People do not lose people without letting them know exactly where they are with you. Please, that's the word.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Donnie B.